All right, let's jump right into this explainer. We're looking at a massive behavioral mystery today, one that sits right at the intersection of human psychology and our modern digital world. You know, when a major global health crisis hits, developing the actual medical science is really only half the battle. The other, and honestly arguably much trickier half, is figuring out exactly why people make the health choices they do, especially when those choices seem to go against their own best interests.
So where does vaccine hesitancy actually come from? To understand why folks act the way they do, even when there's a global scientific consensus staring them in the face, we have to look past the surface. It is incredibly easy to just assume that someone choosing to skip a vaccine is simply uninformed or, just being stubborn. But the research shows it's actually vastly more complicated. It's this whole invisible web of deeply ingrained psychological biases.
Section 1. The Vaccination Readiness Puzzle.
To solve this puzzle, researchers developed a psychometric scale to figure out what precisely tips the scales for an individual. Think of vaccination readiness less like a simple yes or no switch in your brain and way more like a slider on a mixing board. It's a highly fluid behavioral spectrum. Depending on what you see on your news feed today, your deeply held beliefs, or just your everyday environment, you can actually slide back and forth along that spectrum. Section 2. Measuring the 7 C's. Okay, originally, scientists used these 5 specific psychological checkpoints, the 5 C's. First up is confidence, which is just your baseline trust in the medicine and the doctors. Then complacency, basically thinking the disease isn't a big enough deal to worry about. Third is constraints, which are your real-world hurdles, like literally not being able to get off work to go to a clinic. Fourth is calculation, your internal cost-benefit analysis. And finally, collective responsibility, which is rolling up your sleeve just to protect the vulnerable people around you. For the longest time, this 5C model was the absolute gold standard. But then, the pandemic happened. A 2021 study out of Denmark looked at 681 people and realized, wait, the old model isn't quite cutting it anymore. The world had radically changed. Suddenly, our information landscape was hyper-digital and super polarized. So, to capture this weird new reality, they upgraded to a 7C scale, adding 2 totally new components. The first new one is compliance. Think about how wild the debates over mandates and lockdowns got. This measures whether an individual supports the rules of the group or if they experience intense psychological pushback, like a knee-jerk reaction against being told what to do. The second new factor? Conspiracy. And it is exactly what it sounds like. It measures how easily someone buys into fake news. Do they think health authorities are secretly corrupt? Do they think there are microchips involved? This metric perfectly captures that vulnerability to alternative narratives.
Section 3. The conspiracy component.
Here's where things get really fascinating. Psychological data confirms that buying into fake news is a literal anchor on public health efforts. Researchers found this severe correlation. When someone scores high on that conspiracy component, all those other positive things we talked about, like confidence and collective responsibility, are completely outweighed. They just plummet to 0. So we have to ask, where is this absolute flood of conspiracy content coming from? When we see millions of people suddenly exhibiting high conspiracy behaviors, we naturally assume there must be millions of people creating these fake news stories, right? Like some massive grassroots uprising? Well, the data tells a stunningly different story.
Section 4. The Disinformation Dozen.
Get this. The vast majority of COVID-19 anti-vaccine misinformation originates from exactly 12 people. Literally just 12. The Center for Countering Digital Hate put out a massive report on this, and they dubbed this tiny, highly influential group the Disinformation Dozen. By late 2020, these 12 individuals had racked up a staggering combined following of over 59 million people across their social media platforms. 59 million! That completely destroys the idea of some decentralized grassroots movement. What we're actually looking at is a highly engineered broadcast network, reaching an audience bigger than the population of many entire countries. So who exactly are these people? It's a really bizarre mix. You've got physicians pushing pseudoscience, a bodybuilder, wellness bloggers, a religious zealot, and even political figures. Despite their totally different backgrounds, they all share one hyper-lucrative strategy, pumping out high-volume anti-vaccine content that weaponizes our psychological vulnerabilities.
Section 5. The Social Media Impact.
Now, let's look at the sheer scale of this.
When researchers dug into a massive data set of over 800,000 posts in early 2021, they found that 65% of all anti-vaccine content was tied directly back to just these 12 people. Let that sink in. Nearly 2/3 of the entire internet's anti-vaccine conversation was being driven by a dozen accounts.
And on Facebook, the concentration is even more shocking. These 12 were responsible for nearly 3/4, 73% of all anti-vaccine content there. The platform's algorithms absolutely devour this kind of high-engagement, emotionally charged content. The algorithms essentially supercharge that conspiracy component of human psychology, purely for profit and clicks. And here is the real kicker. The report found that a whopping 95% of the COVID misinformation reported on these platforms wasn't actually removed by the tech companies. Despite having super clear policies against medical misinformation, they just let it stay up, spreading to millions. Imran Ahmed, the CEO of the Center for Countering Digital Hate, really hit the nail on the head here. He noted that while Facebook, Google, and Twitter put policies in place to stop this stuff, they completely failed to actually enforce them. And honestly, having rules is completely meaningless if you don't enforce them. By letting repeat offenders slide, these platforms allowed a tiny fraction of users to artificially inflate the conspiracy fears of millions worldwide. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Looking at all this data, it really makes you wonder how much of our own readiness is truly our own choice, right? The 7C scale perfectly maps out the vulnerabilities in the human mind, but it took looking at the digital algorithms to see who was actually pulling the strings. It leaves us with one incredibly provocative question. If a global health crisis is fueled by the psychological vulnerabilities of millions, but engineered by literally a dozen individuals, are we actually fighting a behavioral problem or a digital one? Definitely something to think about. See you next time.